I'm going to break down every single money belief that I had that kept me poor for the last 4 years. And the moment I deleted them, I was able to make 700K a year and build an 80K of business and help tons of other people break their money beliefs that have been holding them back for a very long time. And there's going to be some beliefs that you might have in this video that might have kept you basically in a position where you don't want to be in for a very long time. And the moment you actually realize them is the moment where you can actually break those beliefs so that you can actually start making a tremendous amount of money. So there's a lot of beliefs that you might have subconsciously that keep you poor. But for me to explain what these beliefs are, you need to understand what money fundamentally is, because a lot of you don't really understand the thing that you're actually trying to chase, which is kind of crazy. So I'm just going to simplify this for you because there's a lot of nuances here that some people like to say to overcomplicate it, but I'm going to try to keep it super straightforward so this video can be productive for you and you can get the most value spending your time of day looking at me. So what is money fundamentally? So money in its simplest form is just an exchange of value. Okay, so someone and the exchange of value is extremely dependent on a lot of things. So before we had, the paper stuff that everyone gives, the coins, all that type of stuff, before money was just like an exchange of different things. So if someone had, let's say, cows and they wanted to get wheat, they'll be like, yo, how many cows would you want for this amount of wheat? And the guy would be like, based on your cows, I'm gonna give you like 5 sacks of wheat. And they'll give them like 3 cows and they'll use that as an exchange. So that value was extremely dependent on, number one, the person at the time, and then also what the other person was thinking. And they had to come to a mutual agreement to agree that, hey, I'm going to give you this thing in exchange for whatever thing that you have. So that's what it was. It was a value exchange. So this became obviously extremely inefficient because not everyone's going to be rolling around with cows, wheat, or bread, or all these types of things that people need to exchange for money. So what ended up happening was someone was like, hey, let's create a more efficient way to do this. Let's do it in, let's say, coins, for example. So what they did is they started giving out coins and they're like, hey, X amount of coins is going to be worth X amount. So if I give you 5 gold coins, that's worth 5 cows. So I'm going to give you that. And then someone might be like, hey, actually, I think 5 gold coins is worth 2 cows. So I'm going to take that. So it's extremely dependent on who you're speaking to at the time. But keep in mind, it's just an exchange of value. It's technically some sort of energy that you're kind of keeping. So now, and I think it's after, I'll say 1971, it stopped being backed by gold. So what I mean by being backed by gold is that for every amount of like gold bars that existed, there was a certain amount of money that was backing it. So if, let's say, there was $100,000 worth of gold, there will be $100,000 worth of money. Now they got rid of that. Now money is basically whatever the fuck the government tells you it is. Okay, so if the government wants to print out 10 billion in one day, there's 10 billion in the market. So it's basically backed by something called fiat. And fiat literally basically means whatever we say it is. I'm not even joking, that's literally what it is. It's just something that's so arbitrary that you can't even understand it. So why is this important for you? Because I'm not going to be one of those woo-woo guys that are going to be like, oh, money doesn't exist. Because obviously it clearly does. It's a thing that you need to be able to live a nice life that you want to live. The problem is the belief that you guys have around this money is something that holds you back from actually doing the things that you want to do, because this money, it doesn't actually dictate your actual life. And I'll explain what I mean by that. The first belief that a lot of people have around money is that it's going to dictate their entire life if they don't have it. So this is the first problem. And I'm going to explain this in a very simple term. So what you don't want is, you don't actually want the money. And this might actually confuse you. I'm being completely honest. And it's going to make sense when I start connecting the dots later in this video. You just want the things that money actually provides for you. So I'll give you an example. The things like, for example, safety. The things like, I don't know, let's say, like acceptance from tribes or something like that. Or like shelter and like food and certainty. So these are things that we have always wanted for our existence of like human beings. So I'll give you an example. Money didn't actually exist for 99% of the time that we've pretty much been alive. Before money, it was just, survival, shelter, food, water, and your tribe. That was basically what you had at the time. So what happened is, as we went on in life, we started to associate money with these things, because this is now, unfortunately, how the world is. In order to have these things, typically most people think that they need to have certain amounts of money. So what you're chasing is not the actual money. You're chasing the things that come with the money, which is the safety, the acceptance from your tribes, your shelter, your food, and your certainty, because that's what we've been craving for the entire existence of our life. Because think about it, we've been existing for, let's say, this long in the world. Let's just call this like, I don't know, like millions of years. I'm not going to say exactly how long, but it's like, let's say 100 million years, because I don't know exactly how long humans have existed. Money has only been around for this sliver, and the rest was just like whatever, but like that shit didn't even exist. You know what I mean? It's only been around for this sliver of time, which we are fortunately living in right now. So if you are basically trying to base your entire life off something that only recently just existed, that's the big mistake you're playing, because we actually only want these things over here, which is the safety, the food, the shelter, the certainty. So because our mind associates money with giving us those things, because nowadays that's how the world is, built up to actually like work like this, what happens is we actually have negative connotations associated with money. So when we see money, we get extremely sad because we think that we can't have these things. And what happens is there's a certain part of your brain called the amygdala, I'm pretty sure. It's the threat detection part of your brain. So what happens is when you don't have money, your brain is basically saying, oh, we don't have all of this shit. That's extremely bad. And then what happens is it puts you in this like state where it's like you have anxiety, you're stressed, you're just thinking about money constantly. And it's not because you actually want the money, it's because you want the things that come with the actual money itself too. So the first thing that you have to understand is you don't actually chase money. You're chasing all of these things, and that's okay, because that's what we've been designed to chase for a very long time, because that's exactly what keeps us alive and keeps us from fucking dying. So this is a good thing. But the issue is you can't associate money with this, because this is not actually what comes with the money. This can come without it. So the biggest belief that you have to change is, number one, you're not chasing money. You're chasing the things that come with the money itself, which is the safety, the acceptance, the shelter, the food, and the certainty, which is what we've been trying to get for the last like hundreds of years that we've existed for. It's just a very funny world that money is what actually gives you these types of things. So what's the big problem here? The big problem here is if you don't have money and if you don't have these things, because all of this is the stuff that we want, we start to associate negative stuff around money. So, emotions. So, this is supposed to be negative emotions around money. So, let's say, for example, you didn't grow up in a super rich household. Let's say, your parents weren't doing really well. And then let's say you somehow started to, start making money for yourself. If you were in a situation where, let's say, money wasn't like a horrible thing, but you didn't have a lot of it, you would have negative associations with money, because if you didn't have money, maybe that would affect your food. Maybe that would affect your shelter. Maybe that would affect your safety. Maybe that would affect like your acceptance with like different people or friends. And because these things would happen, you would actually start to resent money subconsciously, because your money is going to associate, whoa, if we don't have this, we're going to be in danger. So what's going to happen is two things. Your mind is going to try to obviously look for money and look for ways to actually start making money, because consciously that's what you're telling yourself. But subconsciously, because you associate all these bad things with money, you're going to actually end up resenting it. You're going to actually start pushing it away and pushing away opportunities that are going to allow you to make that sort of money, and trying to hoard it, because you feel like if you don't have this thing, and if you don't have this thing in your life, you're not going to be able to have all of this stuff. And that's the crazy part, because it tries to mess you up in like a couple of different ways. It would either push away the money, or it would bring you the money, it will give you what you want, and then when you do have it, it'll just get rid of it, because it thinks that that's the cause of all the problems that you have in your life. That's the crazy part about it. So the biggest belief that you have to, number one, change in order for you to actually start getting a lot of money is you need to remove the negative emotions that you have associated with the money itself. Because the money is not what's causing all of this. Because like I said, the money is fiat. It's arbitrary. It doesn't really exist. It hasn't existed for pretty much 99% of our time. So the fact that you're putting a lot of weight on something that hasn't actually existed, and something that's pretty much just made up, and you can actually genuinely get however much of the money that you want in this life, if you know how to do it, which I've been doing for other people for a very, very long time, you don't have to worry about it too much. So that's the first thing that you have to change your mindset on. This money doesn't actually exist, but I'm not saying that, hey, don't actually go about money and start living homeless on the street and obviously just like wear no clothes. No, that's not what I'm trying to say. I'm just trying to say that the things that you want to get with the money, which is what ultimately everyone is trying to achieve, is not something that comes with the money itself. It's something that can come on its own. So that's the first thing I want you to understand. Money is only our means to get the things that we've always wanted. in our entire life. So that's the first belief that you want to have. You want to change that. The second belief that I want you guys to understand is something that's extremely important when it comes to, obviously, number one, keeping the money itself. So you need to understand that money is not a scarce. I don't know why my marker is dying over here. Money is not a scarce. I think it's because of the resource. What do I mean by this? You can get as much money as you possibly want if you understand how it works and how you can actually generate it. So what do I mean by a scarce resource? Because most of us are not used to, let's say, having an abundance amount of money. Maybe you're in a different situation where you've had different amounts of money before. Because of the negative connotation that we might have had with money when we were younger or like when we were kids, we would basically think that money is going to be something that's scarce. If you don't have a good way to get it, you're not going to be able to have it. So what tends to happen is we end up like hoarding it, putting it in red because this is bad. Or we end up like, I don't know, sabotaging ourselves. Or what else do we end up doing? We end up like, I don't know, like getting rid of opportunities, or putting ourselves in opportunities where we don't make money. Because subconsciously, we think it's something that's hard to achieve and we are not deserving of this money. So where does this actually come from? This comes from us understanding that money is something that we have been trying to get because it gives us all the things that we want in life. So because all the things that we want in life, depending on how you've been raised, is going to be very skewed on how you can actually get there, we might have a connotation and a belief that money is a scarce resource. So what I mean by this is if you've grown up, let's say you were poor. I'm just going to make you sad because no one wants to be poor. Been there before, it's not really nice. And you want all the fine things in life. You want the Lambos. I'm going to draw the Lamborghini. Lamborghini. That's not Lamborghini. You want the, I don't know, the nice watches. Bling blings. And then let's say you want like the vacation trip. So this is like a beach and this is like someone on the beach like being super happy. So you want all the nice stuff in life, but you can't get them because you don't have money. So the mistake, and then what ends up happening is because you can't get these things, we're like, okay, because I can't get these things are scarce, that means money is a scarce resource and I suck because I don't have money. That's the wrong way to actually look at these types of things because that's not how it actually works, because the belief that it's scarce is what's actually causing you to make sure that these things actually manifest in your life. Because at the end of the day, everyone wants the freedom stuff. Everyone wants to be able to make tons of money. And that's what I wanted to do when I first started. When I was a complete beginner in the space, I literally just wanted to make money so I didn't have to worry about my family not being able to, eat and do certain things that we had in life. Like there was days where we would only have just like literal tea and biscuits for like an entire 24 hours because we didn't actually have enough money to be able to get certain things. So I know what it's like to be poor and be broke. This is not fun, but the mindset that you were in when you're in that state is what's going to actually keep you there in the first place. Because if you were stuck in this mindset thinking that you can't get this thing because it's a scarce resource and no one can actually provide you this stuff, that's when you're in the wrong. And that's when a lot of things are going to start becoming a lot harder for you, because what's going to happen is you're going to start subconsciously blocking things that can actually make you a lot of money. Because the big thing that I want you guys to understand and take away from this video is nothing happens for you. Nothing happens to you. Everything happens for you. What I mean by that is, if you are under the belief that money is going to be a scarce resource and you can't have it, the world is going to prove what you're saying to it. It's going to say, okay, cool, that's your belief. I'm going to make sure that you actually are proving that. So what's going to happen is you're not going to have as much opportunities. You're not going to be able to sign as many clients. You're not going to be able to work with as many people as you want. You're going to get paid a very small amount of money because you are proving what you subconsciously believe, which is money is a hard resource to actually get. It's super scarce. I can't get it, so I can't have the finer things of life because you haven't been able to experience the finer things in life. So you associate you not experiencing that with the scarcity of money. So that's the issue that you guys are in. And what happens is because you start subconsciously killing these opportunities and subconsciously making it harder for yourself, you don't get the thing that you want, and you are only shown what is actually for you. You are shown, okay, if you believe that you can't make this money, you are going to get bad jobs or like bad opportunities, less clients, you're going to get paid less, and you're going to be in many situations where money isn't a lot in your bank. That's the funny part. Or you're gonna pretty much like always subconsciously get into situations where you have money and then the money just disappears because you believe that these things are scarce. That's the funny part about the whole money thing. It's like you end up just like sabotaging yourself a lot. So the big mistake that I see a lot of people do when they're in this situation is they don't understand that this is the thing that they want. So in order for them to make sure that they think money is not scarce, they need to have an abundance of all the freedom that they actually want. So in order to get rid of all these like bad mindsets around like, things that you don't have, you need to basically start experiencing the things that you don't have, because you need to understand that the money is not what's going to actually get the thing. The thing has to come before the money comes itself. You have to believe and truly embody the fact that you are living pretty much your dream life, even though you don't have the thing that you want. Because like I said, the brain has only evolved to want the abundance from, the acceptance from your tribe as the shelter, the food, and the security. That's the thing that your part of the brain that keeps thinking about threats is wanting. It just wants to feel safe. So you need to feel safe before you actually have the money, because that's the only way you can signal to your brain that you actually have the money. Okay? So then what's going to happen is, because you're basically embodying the fact that you have the things that you want, everything is going to start happening for you. What I mean by that is the world is going to try to start proving that you actually have these things without actually having them. So what I mean by proving is, now if I have a mindset where it's like, actually, I have the money and I have lots of it, even though you don't actually have lots of it in your bank account, but you're tricking your brain to feel like you have, what's going to end up happening is you're going to have better opportunities. You're going to have more clients or more people that pay you. By the way, if you guys want to also get more clients, first link down below, there's a 5-minute video that shows you exactly how to do it. Shameless plug, I know. But anyways, you're going to get paid more and you're going to have a bigger bank account of all the things that you want. And let me give you a practical example of this. So let's say there's two people. Let's say one person, they say they grew up in the exact same environment. They grew up in an environment where, I don't know, like, they didn't really have much money. Their parents was rationing everything with them. They didn't really have much like abundance to experience the finer things in life, like go out on crazy vacations or buy a lot of like jewelry, designers, all that type of stuff. They were just normal people. They weren't like super, super poor, but normal life, very scarce and resource limited life. That's pretty much what it is. Now, these two people, let's say they want to go and start businesses. One of them might be like, oh, starting a business is hard. All these things never work. Like, my parents tried to start a business, it never worked. They lost a lot of money and they wouldn't be able to actually make more. Like, business is difficult. These things are never going to work for me. Like, this is what they're saying. Now, the other person who came from the same environment, let's just say the exact same type of person, is saying, actually, no, you can actually make a lot of money with business. Like, I've seen it happen. I've seen my friends do it. I've seen other people do it. I've seen people online do it. I've seen people my age do it as well. I think this can actually work, and I'm going to make sure that I can actually do certain things. Now, you need to answer this question. Who's right and who's wrong? They're both right. Because the universe is going to try to do everything for them to make sure that what they're believing subconsciously is actually true. So what's going to happen is one person is actually going to get a ton of opportunities. Another person is not going to get a ton of opportunities. But they're both getting what they subconsciously want, even though they both want to start businesses to get these things, because they have the belief that these things are going to happen to them. That's what ends up making sure that they don't actually manifest or get these things that they want. It just wouldn't happen. But because this person has this belief, so they believe that they can get here and they subconsciously think they are here before it actually happens, that's when the things are going to start happening. So what's going to happen is you're going to actually be sitting down, and because you're truly believing every single day and you're thinking about it, you're going to be like, you know what? What's the smartest way to go about this? Who do I need to speak to? What mentorship do I need to buy? Who do I need to work with? How do I need to help this person? Because they aren't thinking about it from a scarce resource. And it's just a thought, by the way, guys. It's not really the actions. You just truly have to sit down and think and tell yourself this is going to happen before it actually happens. And then what happens is everything is easier to actually get and manifest, because you are basically putting yourself in this mindset where this is going to happen before anything else. That's the things that you guys have to start doing. And the moment you actually start doing this, things and opportunities start becoming a lot easier. And I'll give you like a practical example of this. When I sat down and I told myself that I wanted to basically make, I don't know, like let's say 80, like I wanted to make like 100 grand a month, for example. I was making around like maybe 25 to 30 grand a month at the time. It wasn't anything crazy. I was looking at different people that were able to make the same amount of money that I was making with less skill sets that I have, around about a similar age. But I was telling myself that this is possible because I've seen other people do it myself. So what I did is I sat down and I was just asking myself, what are the things that I can do to help me get to this point as quickly as possible? And what ended up happening was I just started thinking about different ways, and I started thinking about different strategies, different systems, whatever. And you've probably had situations where you've done that for yourself, and then it just made the whole situation of me getting to where I wanted to be a lot easier. So that's how I was able to make 100 grand a month, and basically get to the point where I was able to, well, I haven't made 100 grand a month, I made like 85K, but I'm gonna do it very soon. But that's how I was able to actually scale to that point where I went from 25 to 85 grand a lot easier. Because I started thinking about what's the easiest way to get here, how can I get here, what are the things I'm thinking about, and it was just thought. It wasn't like I drastically improved in skills and I uncovered a completely new business model that no one has ever done before. Like, I was doing the normal stuff that I was doing, I was just thinking differently. And that thought process came from me believing that it was possible, and me having these positive beliefs, and me believing that I was here before I actually got here. That's the cool part about it. So how do you believe that you are here before it actually happens? Okay, so it's gonna get a bit deep, boys and girls that are watching this. It's a very inclusive channel that we have over here. All right, so how do you believe you're there before you actually are there? So I'm gonna give you something that's gonna probably blow your mind. So your brain, I'm gonna draw this over here. This is not your brain. I hope it's not, because it should not look like this at all. That'll be crazy. You might need to get that checked out if it does. But your brain, as you can see over here, can't distinguish between real life and imagination. I think there's a better word to use for imagination, but I think it's just like emotion. The reason why is because your brain is dependent on emotion that you're feeling. So emotion is energy in motion. Okay? So emotion has one of the strongest charges that we have on our brain, because that's how the brain works. That's how we make decisions. That's why you get super emotional when you watch certain things, or if something happens to you, you get super emotional. And then what happens is this emotion creates, I don't want to get too technical here, but let's just, to simplify this, it creates, let's say, like a neural pathway that creates a certain type of belief based on an experience that you've had. Okay? So let's say, for example, you've had a very traumatic experience with something. What tends to happen is you get something called like PTSD. So if something similar to that happens, you are reminded about the emotion that you felt before, and that's where people have anxiety, they get stressed, they get like emotional about certain things that happen to them in their life because of these things that happen over here. So your brain is kind of, it works like this. It's like you see something, whether it's like you imagine it or it's in real life, you get an emotion, and then it creates that neural pathway in your brain, and then you start associating whatever what happened to you with that emotion. So this works in good and bad ways, okay? This is just how the brain fundamentally works. It's not a black or white thing. This is just how it works, okay? So let's say that you had an experience in life where you didn't have a lot of money in real life, and you saw that happen. Like you saw, let's say, your parents fighting about money, or you saw, let's say, not having money to do a certain thing affected you about something that you wanted to have in life. Let's say you wanted to go on this like super cool school trip that your friends wanted to go, but you didn't have enough money to go there, and your parents couldn't afford it, and now you're like, fuck, like, damn, I'm really broke. So these experiences, depending on how we perceive them, which is the emotion, is going to create a certain type of belief that we have around the thing. So we will then associate what we wanted to get with the actual thing itself. So let's say that trip that you couldn't go on because your parents couldn't afford it, been there, you start associating them. Parents, I can't afford money. Like, we can't afford nice things, we can't afford nice trips. So what ends up happening is like that neural pathway is now created, and now I have this belief that's built because of the emotion. So depending on how strong the emotion is, the stronger the actual belief of the neural pathway. So if it's a really, really, really traumatic experience, let's say, for example, with your parents or whatever, the charge is going to be extremely high, and it's going to be like, fuck, damn, I can't get this thing. And that's what probably makes it really hard. So here's the important distinguisher. Your brain can't distinguish between the real life and the imagination side of things. Your brain only looks at things from like an emotion standpoint and how you actually feel. So if you feel and you genuinely have that strong emotional charge that money is going to be a scarce resource and you can't achieve it, that's what you're going to start achieving. And that's what's going to actually start happening for you. But if you feel that it's not, and you actually feel like you can actually get it, even though you haven't experienced getting it in real life, then it's actually going to become a lot easier for you. So how do you actually change this feeling? By creating something that is emotionally equivalent to the bad thing that you experienced over here, or something that is stronger in your imagination, in your subconscious, and then your subconscious is going to accept it as the truth. What do I mean by that? Your brain is going to start looking at things and be like, damn, this guy's right. Like this guy's right. He's saying that we have money. He's feeling that we have money. He's feeling that we're secure, we're safe, we'll do it with this. So now what's going to happen is all the things that come with living that life is going to start manifesting into your life itself, and you're going to start experiencing those things. So if you feel like you haven't been able to make a lot of money because you are not feeling safe, if you start telling yourself and you start tricking your mind that you're actually safe and you have money, these things are going to actually start coming towards you a lot easier. That's the cool part about this. If you believe that, hey, like, you know, because I've dealt with something like in real life and it's a traumatic experience, the bad things that you got from that traumatic experience is going to keep coming into your life. So the mistake that you don't want to make is you don't want to start telling yourself that real life is going to dictate your future, because this past is always going to be the past. That's always going to happen. You can rewrite the way that you see things, and in order, and when you do that, you're going to be able to change your future. So I need you to just really sit down and just write down the most like traumatic or like emotional, intense experiences that you've had around money, things, and life in general, and then force yourself to basically just create a stronger emotional feeling, whether that's like imagining people, your family friends, or your friends, your family, the people around you, making the money that you want to make, or like imagining yourself, or even doing the things that you don't have the money to really do. I'm not saying like go do crazy stuff, but experiencing the things that you want to achieve that doesn't really require money, like being free, like not having to respond to text, or like, for example, like going out on a vacation when you actually feel like going, experiencing these things, because what's going to happen is it's going to signal to your brain that, oh, we actually already have these things. So the money that actually gets these things is going to come to me, and I'm going to start looking for opportunities to get there. It's like, for example, when you want to afford a certain type of thing, like, for example, if I wanted to go to a trip on, let's say, Thailand on business class, if I truly believe that I can get there and I'm imagining myself doing it, I truly believe that this is going to happen, my brain's going to force itself to look for situations to make sure that that thing actually happens. So it's going to force myself to look for opportunities. It's going to force me to have conversations, because that's all I'm thinking about. If you genuinely only think about the goal, that's the reason why you see a lot of people that are super successful. They're just crazy. All they think about is just their goal. It's because what else is there to think about? What else is there your brain to process? Your brain can only think about that one thing. So it's going to force itself to make sure that it can actually figure out situations where it can get that one thing that you actually want. So that's the first thing that you have to start doing, because once you start imagining that you're there before you actually are there, and you experience the things in your brain and you create the emotion around those things before you actually get those things in real life, that's when your brain's actually going to be like, you know what, he actually has these things, and it's going to give it to them, because you can only have what you already have. So that's the fun part about that over there. So your brain, super powerful, only if you use it the right way and you don't let it to actually dictate you. So that's the way that you actually change your boys and girls. So sit down and actually do that. You can take some time to do it, but the moment you do it, life becomes a lot easier. So that's the last thing that I wanted to go over. And I hope you guys enjoyed this video breaking down all the money beliefs that you might have. If you guys want to know exactly how I've been able to make a ton of money, a lot of people a lot of money, by basically helping them build a consulting business, that's exactly how I make all my money. There's going to be a link down below that explains how I do it in literally just 5 minutes. Just check it out. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. See you in the next one. Peace.